Our next guest here on KFYO, our great friend, Senior Director of Korean Studies at the Center for the National Interest. He's got a piece out today talking about President Trump wanting a breakthrough deal before the election when it comes to North Korea. Harry Kazianis joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Harry, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Chad. How are you?
Doing well. Always appreciate you taking some time to let us know what's going on around the world. And it's been a little bit since we've heard about North Korea and the U.S. and any kind of talks moving forward. But you've got a piece today at the AmericanConservative.com that maybe there are going to be some talks. Maybe.
There could be. I mean, speaking to White House sources, State Department sources, people in the Trump campaign, there is a lot of talk and chatter and trying to put together, some sort of package to entice the North Koreans back to talks. Now, I speaking to different officials, it's pretty clear that, I think there's some pessimism there. I think they realize that it's going to be a high bar to try to get the North Koreans back to the table. But I think they realize the benefits are very key. I think they realize that, when it comes to Asia, let's face it, our focus has shifted, Chad. We're really much more worried about the rise of China, the economic damage it's done to the country, their rising military. And, with all the trillions of dollars we're spending on COVID-19, trying to keep the country safe and healthy, our priorities have to shift a little bit. And that might mean that it might be time to try and make a deal with the North Koreans to shift to all these different priorities. It makes a lot of sense.
I could see some benefits, but I could also see some risk here. Politically speaking, I could see some risk for the president trying to do a deal. And if it all falls apart at the last second, well, you've got Joe Biden, who, again, not like they had a lot of success during the Obama administration with North Korea, but that does kind of give an opening there for the former vice president, does it not?
It definitely does. And I think what the administration is going to do is they're going to try and do these negotiations a little bit differently. The special representative and now the Undersecretary of State, Stephen Biegun, I think is really going to try to make sure that he has a counterpart in North Korea that can actually negotiate for the North Koreans. Something we didn't know going back to Hanoi last February during that summit is that the North Korean negotiators who sat down with Biegun and other U.S. officials did not have the power to negotiate on Kim Jong-Un's nuclear program. And it was at that time when Trump had to make a decision. Do I walk away from this potential summit or do I try to make the deal with Kim directly, which is what Kim wanted? He said that he was going to offer this big package, which we know never happened. So I think for the United States, I think they are looking for a potential deal that makes sense for both sides, but the terms of the deal can't just be all struck at the summit because I think they're just worried that, they would be giving Biden that advantage and saying that, Trump is an appeaser or another Neville Chamberlain or can't get a deal. So I think they're going to be very cautious on that.
Yeah, visiting with Harry Kazianis here on the Chad Hasty Show. The last time we spoke with you was when there was the question about Kim Jong-Un's health. And then after he appeared in public a couple of times, we really haven't heard anything else about North Korea. They haven't. I mean, of course, we've been focused on coronavirus and other issues here in the U.S. What's been going on in North Korea that maybe is prompting this move by the administration?
Well, I think the administration might sense that the North Koreans have their own internal struggles. We're obviously very focused on everything that's happening. You in Texas, the whole country is very focused on coronavirus, and that's the right thing to be. But in North Korea specifically, they're dealing with coronavirus as well. Before this even happened, the country was in a depression. There was huge agricultural shortages. There was a lot of rumors of mass starvation, maybe a lot of people dying because of that. The North Koreans were actually one of the first countries to lock down their borders, specifically with all trade from China. So when you put this all together, the North Koreans could be struggling a lot more than what we realize. And I think the Trump administration might sense that a little bit and might sense that there might be an opening. Now, the thing is, the North Koreans, even though that they might be having all these different problems, they can take a lot of pain. And I would actually point the listeners out today to look at what happened in the 1990s. The North Koreans might have lost 1 million or more people due to mass starvation. So the North Koreans, even though they might want a deal, they will take the pain and try to use that to their advantage, sadly. So we're going to have to watch this carefully.
Harry, I think you had a great ending in your story here at the AmericanConservative.com. You wrote, if America can live with a nuclear Russia, China, and Pakistan, why not North Korea? No White House official would touch that question, at least for now. I think it's it's an interesting way of looking at that. What are your thoughts? Why can't we live with a nuclear North Korea?
Well, the problem is for 30 plus years we've had this idea across multiple administrations, Democrat, Republican, that having a nuclear North Korea would be an international norm that we just could never accept. The problem is North Korea is a nuclear power now. They probably have as many as 30 nuclear warheads. They might even have missiles that can hit the United States. So that's the reality. The question is can we convince the North Koreans to give those weapons up? Look, if we can't, Chad, I would rather be in a situation where we can actually mitigate the threat, where we can maybe go into arms control. And that's something that Ronald Reagan did, a prominent conservative that was very, very hawkish on the Soviet Union and decided, look, I'm not making any progress in these goals when it comes to the Soviets. Maybe I should take a different approach. And you know what? I think that's probably where we're going to end up. And I think that makes a lot of sense considering all the different priorities our country has right now.
Yeah, I don't see the North Koreans saying, yeah, okay, we'll get rid of our nuclear weapons. I mean, that to me, that seems like a far-fetched idea. I mean, great if that were to happen, but I don't see that happening. Do you see a difference between the mindset of North Korea and the mindset of Iran?
I do. I think that the North Koreans have, look, just comparing the two countries' economies, Iran, for me, is actually a much bigger threat. Their economy is worth something like $500 billion. They have massive oil and natural gas reserves. The North Koreans, while they do have trillions of dollars in minerals they could get out of the ground, they've got no capital to pull that stuff out of the ground. So for both countries, the North Koreans, I think, are focused on survival, whereas the Iranians, over the long term, they're looking to dominate the Middle East. So I think for Trump, I think also Trump realizes that, if you're comparing your different threats around the world, North Koreans are a threat. But when you compare China, when you compare Iran, even what's happening today with Russia trying to hack, all the different COVID-19 research that's out there, we have a lot of pressing problems. And when you really boil down to it, North Korea is a bad problem to deal with, but thankfully it's a manageable one.
Yeah, absolutely. They can read your story today up at the AmericanConservative.com. Harry Kazianis, Senior Director of Korean Studies at the Center for National Interest. Always a pleasure to visit with you, and we'll visit again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's Harry Kazianis here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO.